Hey guys, it's Conrad Bobulak here, CEO of Investors Prime Real Estate and best-selling author of Australian Real Estate Investing Made Simple. Welcome to my video today. Today I'm going to cover 6 fundamental reasons why the Australian property market will keep going strong for the next 2 or 3 years. And there's been a lot of doom and gloom in the media recently, which I'll cover that as well. And it's nothing new. I've been watching the media prophesize Armageddon for the last 25 years. In fact, I'm 45 and I started investing, over 2 decades ago, and nothing's changed. The only thing is that they continuously get things wrong, which is pretty funny. Personal disclaimer before we get started. I'm not going to insult your intelligence and tell you that you are definitely going to become a multi-millionaire property investor by following anything that I've got to say today. This is all purely for educational reasons only. And if you're going to act on something, please get independent financial advice from people that have got the results that you're after. There's no guarantees in life, guys. The only guarantee is that if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. So you've got to take action. My background is very boring in terms of my traditional education. I've wasted 4 years at Monash University doing assignments with international students and playing pool at the tavern and drinking beer. And thought about doing an MBA, more bad advice, but I thought, you know what, maybe I should get out there in the real world and start earning some money. Got into financial planning with Australian Uni Funds Management, then move on to mortgage broking and now real estate for the last 8 years. So my background is banking and finance. I was a financier for NAB, or Medfin, which is a subsidiary owned by NAB. And the most important thing about myself is that I'm actually a property investor myself in Melbourne with a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. So everything I'm telling you is real. I'm not an academic at some university campus or overseas, some American telling you what's happening in Australia. I'm in Melbourne, in St Kilda, right now in my office, in my boardroom, and I'm sourcing properties from developers, dealing with valuation companies every day, property managers, developers, investors. Every day, I've got my finger on the pulse. I know exactly what's happening in Melbourne, and I'm sharing this information with you with no interest just to make you more money, and apart from that, save you from making mistakes. Because mistakes can be very costly in real estate. It's usually in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, so you want to make sure that you don't make any fundamental mistakes when you're building your property portfolio. Once again, also, just a bit of a plug of my 2 books. If you want to get a copy of my finance book, simply go into bookonfinance.com.au, or my latest book, which has got #1 bestseller, realestateMadeSimple.com.au. If you buy from my websites, by the way, you'll get a free home study as well, worth about $495, which is 10 hours of content plus a 495-page manual. By the way, I really want to thank you guys for making me #1 best-selling author on Amazon, which happened in a few days of launching that book. I sold 10,000 copies in about a day. And I also want to thank you for keeping my finance book in the top 10 as well. So thank you very much for those who have bought my book. I'm writing 3 more books, so stay tuned. Now, let's get into the market. This is the crazy thing. Remember the bloodbath premonitions by the 60-minute story, which I covered extensively in a lot of my YouTube videos. And there was a story that the market's going to crash by 40% in 2018. The story ran on the 16th of September 2018. 3 years later, nothing's happened. And so the reason the market hasn't crashed, and it won't crash at all, there's 6 reasons why the market won't crash. I'll cover each one extensively, just in relation to what's happening in the property market and in relation to what you need to know. So the first one is access to super cheap credit. Number 2 is record high population growth. Number 3, development restrictive planning controls throughout suburbs in Melbourne. Number 4 is the Australian tax policy favouring property investors. Number 5 is the age pension discouraging Australians to sell their homes. And number 6 is the Victorian economy in general. And I'll cover each one of these and how it's going to impact the Australian property market, and specifically the Melbourne property market and what's happening right now during COVID-19. The end is near. Now that story that I referred to before, here it is here. It's embarrassing, isn't it? Like after 3 years, I mean, they just must feel like complete idiots with that story. You know, this premonition of, 40% drop in 12 months? Well, it's been 3 years now. And what I want to do, guys, is I want to mention this story every year around September, just to rub it in, to show you how wrong these guys get it. And personally, I don't care. I find it hilarious. What I do care is young people, 21, getting into the market and listening to this bullshit by people that are completely unqualified to have any opinion on the real estate investing because they're all employees with no assets behind them, and then selecting these so-called self-professed gurus and academics who just sit there in some dark cubicle pulling numbers out of books saying this is why the market's going to crash. I mean, if you go back 20 years ago on Google, how many people have been prophesizing the market's going to crash? I feel like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day whenever I hear these stories. You know, it's just crazy. And these are some of the worst ones, which is Harry Dent. I mean, the amount of times he gets things wrong is incredible. In 2014, he forecasted a house price drop of 27% in Sydney and Melbourne over the next several years. Well, it's now 2021, okay? The market's gone up by 30%. Where's the drop? I mean, how many, you know, and the thing is, when he gets things right now and then, which is once every 10 years, my God, you should see him. It's like, as I say, even the broken clock gets the time right twice every 24 hours. Financial Doomsday says Australian property prices will crash by 50% in coming global crisis. Interesting. I was actually speaking on stage in 2008 when he was in Australia. He was saying the market's going to crash just like he did in the US. I was saying, no, it's not. It's going to go up. And in fact, he was right. I was right. He was wrong completely. Mr. Dent, who is currently touring the country to promote his new book, 0 Hour, incorrectly predicted a 50% wipeout in Australian property prices in 2014. He believes this time it's a real deal. This time it's for real, not like the other 27 times. Critics of Mr. Dent liken him to a broken clock that is right twice a day, while Mr. Dent hits back at the mainstream media pundits calling him crazy, an idiot, and a quack as nothing new. Of course, that's all he can say. You'll see, you'll see. The problem is that it's been happening for decades now. Like, it's funny if it happens for 5 years, but when you turn over a whole decade and you just keep getting things wrong, his predictions, the latest in a series of ominous warnings going back decades, include stock crashing by 80% just weeks from now, real estate prices plummeting by 30 to 60%, and Bitcoin by 95%. On the plus side, he sees the coming crash as buying opportunity within Australia, one of the best positioned countries in the developed world. They're in the #1 country I would reinvest in, he said. Aussie homes 40% overvalued, leaving young buyers paying for property crash. Really? And you know, the banks are no better than the experts. CBA came out during COVID-19, this is May 2020, saying, oh my God, COVID's coming, everyone's going to lose their jobs. Experts, what do you think? I went to uni. I think the market's going to crash by 32%. Yes, 32%. And of course, the media loves numbers like that because it sells papers, so bad news sells. And then if it didn't crash, 6 months later, they said, CBA, what do you think is going to happen in the market? What did we say last time? 32%? Is that what we said, 32? Wow, we overshot. 10%. We meant 10% when we said 32. 6 months ago. I think things are getting better, 10%. This is in April 17, 2020. And then in September the 9th, 2020, when things didn't crash, they came back and they said, did we say 10% last time? We meant 6. Like when we say 10, we meant 6, 10, 6. What's 4 percentage points between friends, right? Come on, guys. Did we say 32? No, that was completely out. That was in the past. Okay? It's 6%. And then later on, in September 2020, when things turned around, the latest figures came out, CBA came out and said, you know what, guys? I think we're going to bounce back. I think the market's going to actually do quite well. We think it's back to happy days now. Back to happy days. And of course, these other Americans come out. 2016, Jonathan Tepper predicted a 50% drop in house prices. And he's always like, you'll see. Well, it's 2021, Jonathan. We're still here waiting. Lindsay David predicted a bloodbath in the future in 2014. 7 years later, we're still waiting. Obviously, Harry Dent. And this is what you're going to see in the papers in the future. Nothing can stop it. Australia is on the brink of a Great Depression-style economic meltdown that will last 2 years, with house prices to fall by 50%, unemployment to skyrocket, experts say. Yes, interesting. And Harry Dent said the market's going to crash by 55% in Australia in 2009. It didn't. By 60% in 2011, it didn't. By 50% in 2014, it didn't. Since 2009, prices have gone up by 69% nationally. Now he's saying the prices will fall by 50% by 2020. They didn't. It's 2021. Prices went up by 30%. Mind you, he has no more luck picking the Dow Jones index. 40,000 in 2004, 5,600 in 2014, 3,000 in 2018. The Dow Jones is currently 25,000. Interesting. This is what happened, by the way, in 2020, last year, when all these predictions were supposed to mature. You can see that Melbourne went up by 3.9% and then 6.7% for Sydney. The national average is 7.8% when all these doom and gloomers were supposed to, their predictions were supposed to come to fruition and the market was going to crash. Now what they're saying is, well, it's unsustainable. And affordability is a crisis. Well, of course, affordability is a crisis if prices keep going up. That's the definition of unaffordability, right? Things that are expensive. So it's always a negative spin on things. They never see a story of thousands of Australians make a killing on their own home and then become millionaires just by buying the right property in the right suburb. No. It's either markets crashing or affordability is at an all-time crisis. Negative news sells. So you've got to stop reading papers. You know, Herald Sun, apart from Fin Review, I just don't read any news, especially The Age and the Herald Sun, just complete rubbish. You know, just complete rubbish propaganda written by some journalist who did an arts degree at Monash University that doesn't know anything. It's incredible. You know, these people have no relevance in society today. And that's why newspapers are becoming virtually irrelevant, and the days are numbered when people will stop buying newspapers and stop reading newspapers. And I can't wait for the day to happen, personally, because the amount of rubbish that is written in newspapers is just appalling. It is completely biased, completely left-wing, most of it. Let's go through the 6 fundamental reasons why the reality is why the market will continue strong growth in the next 2 or 3 years and will not crash in 2021 or 2022. Number one thing is we have record super cheap credit. Look at that, interest rates are record low. Now, yes, the RBA has said that inflation now is going up slightly and it's beyond the comfort zone. They are going to probably increase rates in 2024, or not before. And you've already seen a number of banks already increase their variable rates and fixed rates, especially 3-year fixed rates, slightly. But we're still talking about variable rates, you know, of 2.5, 2.25, 2.75%, which when you consider the rental yield cycles, and the rental yields are 3.7% to about 4.25 on all the properties that I'm sourcing. Every property that my clients are buying is cash flow positive, cash on cash from day one. So the rent covers all expenses and gives you money left over, about $5,000 to $7,000 per year, which is about $50 to $100 per week on average, depending on how much you earn, how much tax you're paying, and which property you're buying. So we've never seen such cheap money, and this is the reason why people are buying properties, because they have massive buying power and they can buy whatever they want because of the ratio of debt coverage versus their income. Now, APRA has come out recently and said we're going to force banks, which is deposit-taking financial institutions, to increase the benchmark rate by 2%. So now your assessment rate will be 5%, 5.25, 5.5. And some will go as high as 7%, depending on who you're talking to in the future. But I think that will only impact the lowest income earners and the middle income earners. So people that make under $90,000 per year, and especially those 60 grand and below. The high income earners, the 130, 150 per year plus, will be unaffected. So ironically, APRA's new pressure on banks, if you like, will impact the lowest income earners, the first home buyers predominantly, not established people with incomes or high income earners. So nothing, is it going to cool down the market? Yes, certain segments of the market will be cooled down, especially first home buyers. But when we open up the borders again, guys, the international borders, and we have those, 150,000 migrants coming to Melbourne in a year, a lot of them are going to be buying new house or land estates in outer areas, and they're going to push up the prices again. Not only that, labour costs have gone through the roof because half of the tradies don't want to get vaccinated because obviously the vaccinations are all part of a big conspiracy created by the government and the Illuminati. And so they're not getting vaccinated. So half of them can't work in the industry anymore. Therefore, the labour cost has gone through the roof for new builds, and that impacts the prices of houses and townhouses, both, detached houses and up to high density properties. So the labour costs have gone up tremendously in the last 6 to 12 months. Not only that, materials have gone up a lot. So the price of steel and timber has gone up by 300% because of the supply has been affected, and also the supply chain has been affected. So getting timber from Tasmania, for example, to Melbourne has been slowed down. There's hundreds of ships out there in the sea with steel and timber that can't dock and they can't get it to Melbourne because of COVID-19 restrictions. So cheap credit has created a massive increase in demand for properties, and you can see there that's the increase. So that's national, Melbourne and Sydney, and that has created a massive population demand for properties and prices going up. And I have done another YouTube video showing you which areas have boomed, which areas haven't boomed in Melbourne, where are the problematic suburbs, and which suburbs are the best suburbs to invest in. Record high population growth is also a thing that has happened. If you continue this graph, by the way, to COVID-19, you would have seen it go down dramatically, but it's going to go back up. And once that happens, once the international borders are well and truly open, all the flights and all the airline companies are back in business and they're flying at full capacity, you're going to see the biggest influx of immigration into Australia since the Second World War, really. I mean, you're going to see hundreds of thousands of people trying to get into the country for safety reasons, or because they weren't happy with the way the government treated them in their country. So we're talking about people from India, China, even Brazil, places like Hong Kong, Europe, they're going to be coming over, studying a new life, many of them wealthy, buying into established suburbs, which will increase the prices of those suburbs, and many of them will be buying house and land packages, depending on their income and where they've come from. So booming population is one of the key fundamental features of the property market. It's economics 101, it's supply and demand. Not enough supply, massive demand, but in the right area. Remember, there's areas that are oversaturated with properties in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, and there's areas where there's extreme scarcity. So that's a huge thing. The other thing that's happened, which is fantastic, and I'm all for this, is Melbourne. I hate high density apartments. I think they destroy suburbs. Not only aesthetically they destroy suburbs, is if you have a rich suburb and you have cheap properties being built, the demographic changes, and there's people in the suburb that weren't there previously. It changes the nature of the suburb. So I'm all for against it completely. I hate apartments in terms of where I live, and where I live you can never build apartments anyway. That's why I live there. Melbourne richer suburbs have been locked up and high-rise developments largely banned after Planning Minister Matthew Guy approved new residential zones across the city's most expensive areas on Monday. This is from 2014. Kew, Hawthorn, Camberwell, Brighton, Sandringham and Blackrock were amongst the suburbs where two-storey height limits in what residential groups hailed as a major victory. But planning experts say the changes meant NIMBY, not in my backyard, campaigners have won the battle to stop large-scale developments in areas Melbourne within the best transport and infrastructure. That's right. People deserve to live there in peace and not have the suburbs destroyed because people can't afford to live in those suburbs. It's such a stupid thing. It's such a left-wing psychology. People in Brighton have the best suburb because it's on the beach and they've got the best schools, but we can't afford $4 million, so let's get people in there with $500,000 affordability and fuck up the whole suburb because there's poor people out there as well. That's the dumbest psychology I've ever heard. It's like saying, poor people can't afford Mercedes-Benz cars, So why don't we just mass produce them in some third world countries, destroy the quality just so they can have a Mercedes-Benz for $10,000 and feel good about themselves? Are you serious? That's such a left-wing bullshit psychology, you know? It's terrible. The thing about it is, guys, if you want to become wealthy, you can become wealthy in a Western country. Create a business, list a company, trade shares, do whatever it takes. Look at Beats and Dr. Dre. You know, if he can make $1 billion out of selling beats, what's your excuse? You know? Oh, but no, Conrad, the left-wing media is different. So this is a major win for Melbourne, and I think these areas are going to be booming because effectively what's happened is you're creating less stock in those suburbs, which is fantastic. Boroondara, which covers the suburb including Kew, Hawthorn and Camberwell, excuse me, 76% of the council area will now see any building proposals higher than 2 levels blocked. Fantastic. So 2 levels maximum. In Bayside, which covers Brighton, Hampton, Sandringham and Black Rock, even the high 83% of the council area is protected from high rise. In Stonington, which covers Prahran, South Yarra, Toorak, Armidale, a modest 38% of the council area will now be protected from high development. Well, I mean, you know, South Yarra has been completely destroyed by high density apartments, destroyed completely. I remember growing up, Chapel Street was the coolest area to go for coffee. It was exclusive, boutique, you get a car park. Now, the amount of apartments they've built, they've destroyed the whole suburb. It's just too many people, too many of the wrong people as well. And just, it's, you know, I just don't go there anymore. I just think they destroy the whole suburb because of greedy developers. So I'm completely for this. Casey, Mannington, and there's other areas that have done the same. So this should be the trend that is happening, but at least these suburbs are protected now. Now, as an investor, forget about what you feel about this. Is that a good thing to put money into those suburbs? There's going to be less potential stock coming up in the future, yes or no? Absolutely. So when you look at places like, you know, Prahran, I wouldn't touch, same with South Yarra, unless it's a townhouse or a house, which doesn't make sense as an investment vehicle. But Armidale, for example, Sandringham, Hampton, Brighton East, Brighton's too expensive, and Black Rock's too expensive as well to rent. Just the numbers don't work in Black Rock. But surrounding suburbs are still very good. They've got the same restrictions, and you can get properties that are cash flow positive, and there's massive pressure on stock, therefore there's massive capital growth. And this is not going to change in the next few years. In fact, it's going to get more restrictive as these areas go up in value. That's a huge thing. The biggest thing is, and I keep talking about this point a lot, is number 4, which is here to stay, is the Australian tax policy completely favours property investors. If you look at the amount of deductions you can get as a property investor in Australia as a landlord, there are more deductions you can get as a property investor than any other type of investment you can imagine. There's no comparison between shares, annuities, bonds, stocks, cryptocurrency. There's nothing, art collections, gold, precious metals, diamonds. There's nothing that comes close to property and the amount of things you can claim on property. So if you really understand the legislation, the government's actually telling you, really in a big way, guys, we want you to buy a few properties. We want you to become investors so you can self-sustain your retirement and not rely on the government pension. Because ultimately there's too many people in Australia, there's not going to be enough money to go around. And this is why, especially when you're buying properties in self-managed super funds, it becomes such a massively tax advantageous structure. So negative gearing on investment property is number 1, obviously, which is the ability to claim losses against your job income, not only your rental income from the property. That's a huge thing. But also primary place of residence, your PPR capital gain tax exemption. This is why people don't sell their PPRs. They sell them, and they roll over the money into another PPR. So that money is never leaving the market. That's a huge thing. So that's why this $7 trillion that is currently locked in the Australian property market isn't leaving the market anytime soon. It's just going to grow and grow and grow. 50% discount on CGC paid on sales proceeds from investment properties held more than 12 months. So you get a discount of 50%. So people are incentivized to hold on to properties longer than 12 months, investment properties. And obviously if you sell your house that you live in, your PPR, there is no capital gain tax. It's exempt. Concessional contributions towards self-managed super funds also are tax effective, and you can contribute to your super fund. Your super fund can buy property, which is huge. When self-managed super funds switch from accumulation phase to pension phase, you get a tax exemption on the rental income and CGT discounts. So when you buy a property in your self-managed super fund and you hold it, and then your super fund switches from accumulation phase to pension phase, which for me would be 65, for you depending on the year you were born, and you're getting rental income from that property, that rental income is tax exempt. So you're not paying any tax on it. So imagine you end up with a townhouse that's paying you $2,000 or $1,000 a week now, and in 10 years' time it's $2,000, you're keeping the whole amount. So the government wants you to become self-sufficient at retirement, and they're giving you more incentive to do with property, arguably, than any other asset class. Take advantage of it. They're telling you where to go. The banks and the government are giving you clues on how to set yourself up for life. Number 5, age pension discouraging Australians from selling their homes. Pardon me. Your PPR is asset tax exempt. So the biggest thing with Australian culture is to own your own home. You know, it's like, it's part of our conditioning and in fact, people in Melbourne are almost linked to the suburb they live in. You know, they ask you where you live. If you say, you know, Frankston North, I haven't got any money on me. If you say Toorak, you're a snob, right? So people kind of judge you, well, where do you live? And they try to kind of make up their mind about who you are and how much you earn. And to some extent, it is accurate because, you know, if someone's living in a detached house in Toorak and the median price is $3 million, chances are they're well-to-do. And then if someone's living in, I don't know, Melton, then renting, they could be financially unstable. Please don't email me from Melton. I'm sure there's lovely families living there, okay? So it is exempt, which is cool, and that's one of the biggest reasons why Australian retired people are ending up asset-rich, cash flow poor, and they're holding on to their home, and also gives them a sense of security. The last thing you want to do as a retired person is to get a letter from your landlord saying you're moving out because I'm selling the house. And you're getting displaced at 70 or 65, you've got to suddenly put your whole life into boxes and move out from an area you could have been in for 30, 40 years. Who wants to do that? That's why old people are not selling their houses. In fact, there was a lot of, the funny thing is, in the 90s when I was at Monash, wasting my time listening to these broke academics talking about theories that have no relevance in reality, one of the things that they were really convinced of is that in the year 2000 and 2010, when the baby boomers would be hitting 65 and 70 and switching their super fund from accumulation phase to pension phase, they'll be selling down their homes. And the argument was, imagine a person living in Caulfield in a big, 5-bedroom house, 1,000 square meters with a pool and tennis court, 5 kids have all gone, you're 65, you don't need 1,000 square meters of land. You're not really swimming in the pool anymore or using the tennis court. You're going to sell your house in Caulfield and move into a townhouse in Caulfield because you still want the area and you've got your doctor and all your people around you. Bullshit. None of them sold anything. I love it. All they did was put lifts in, made it even better, and they're staying put. And I love the fact they're staying put. And you should stay in your home, and no one should be able to force you out of your own home. If you've worked hard all your life and you're living in a mansion, I don't care if it's 3,000 square meters of land, 1K from the city, and there's young people that can't get in and they're 50K from the city, you know, I won't swear, but who gives a shit? You've worked hard, you deserve to reap the rewards of your efforts. And if they want to make money, there's nothing stopping them from making money. This whole thing is left-wing psychology. You know, this thing that you should be kicked out of your own home. No. I love the fact they're staying put. In the suburbs in Melbourne, where there's retired people living in massive properties, they're not using the backyards, and they're happy. And they've got the right to do so. And that's what I believe. It's a free country, guys. Otherwise, we're back to communism Poland. You know, reallocating land to people as they go through their cycles of life. Anyway, all those academics got things wrong. And their predictions failed. No one moved out of the houses. I love that. Retired couples are not downsizing and they're holding on to properties longer and longer. And they're improving their properties. They're putting in lifts. Lifts are booming at the moment. A lot of couples, actually one of my clients is a salesperson for a lift company, and he can't keep up in the eastern suburbs. So those lifts now, they're so small and they're so cheap. You can get one for like under 100,000, and you can put it in, take it to the top level. They're getting safety put into the houses, rails on stairs, chairs that go up and down. They're just improving the houses to make them more comfortable. They're not selling, and you shouldn't sell. Keep that house. Stress your grandkids out, stress out your kids. And all the kids are just waiting there for you to die so they can jump onto the estates. So people are holding onto houses longer and longer in Metro. If you look at that, for example, in Sydney, the average is 12.4 years. In Melbourne, it's just underneath there. And I love that. I love the fact they're holding onto longer and longer. So the national average now, have a look at the suburbs with the longest average held periods of time. So it's just amazing, you know, like Princess Hill in Melbourne, 21.7 years, Box Hill, 20 years, Kew East, 18.8, St Kilda West, phenomenal suburb. One of the best suburbs in Melbourne, if you ask me, 18.2 years. Mont Albert, also top suburb, 17 years, and Burwood East, 16.8. So forget about this 9 years, 7 years thing where people are turning over properties. And you're going to see this increasing where people are living longer and longer in properties. 30 years is going to happen soon. They'll buy one house really at 30, and they won't leave that house until they'll die, basically, or they might have two houses in their lifetime, which is fantastic. Creates more pressure on housing, more money for investors. You've got to see this as a positive, not a negative thing. Yeah, so it's a very, very good thing. These are some other examples of Melbourne. So you got Princess Hill, Box Hill, Essendon West, Atwood, Springvale South, Kew East, 18.8, St Kilda West, Mont Albert, Burwood, Kingsville. So these are the areas where there's less stock on the market because people are holding onto properties longer and longer, and there's no more land left. Everything's developed. So there's more stock on the market, therefore there's more pressure on property prices. Remember, all these videos that I'm doing on YouTube, and I might have a very kind of twisted, dry humor, but beyond that, my objective with these YouTube videos, guys, is to make you money. I'm giving you clues where to put your money in Melbourne and where not to put your money in Melbourne. And remember, I'm not a developer. I'm not selling my own stock, so I don't have a vested interest in telling you, don't buy Point Cook, you know, and buy Mont Albert, you know. I'm not selling anything in either one of those suburbs. So there's no, I've just got clear data and I know what's going to happen in those suburbs. I'm just trying to share the information with you. Economic growth, number 6. We have a very robust economy. It's going to be a V or a W recovery. So quick dip and up, back we go. The moment businesses have opened up now, you know, and today, even like at midnight, you can stop wearing masks altogether and there's virtually no restrictions. I mean, we're going to come back very quickly. People are just yearning to go back to work in the industries that have been shut down and they're back in action. I'm back at my old gym. I'm doing powerlifting. I'm doing kickboxing twice a week. Everything's back. You know, we're back, people. We're back in cafes, going to cinemas. I went bowling the other day. I don't even like bowling, but my daughter went bowling, so I went for a birthday party. So I went to bowling at Forest Hill Shopping Centre, which is a little shopping centre in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and it was fantastic. I haven't bowled for years. It was, you know, you're back with society again. Getting a coffee, going to JB Hi-Fi, you know, and just looking at stuff. It's just little things that we took for granted, you know, you're just doing for the first time, and it's going to be amazing. I can't wait. I'm going to see June when it comes out on December the 2nd. I'm a big science fiction fan. You know, just going to a cinema and having a seat and popcorn, just stuff like that, things will recover very quickly, you know. And so the economy in Melbourne, because it's predominantly a white-collar economy, it's biotech, banking and finance, medical, it's going to recover very quickly compared to other industries, or other towns, I should say, where they're pretty much mining towns or blue-collar dominated industries, you know, run the town. So they're the 6 reasons why the market's going to recover. And the thing about it is, guys, think about this. I want you to do an activity for yourself right now. I want you to go onto realestate.com and I want you to research these suburbs into, just put houses and how many are available on the market. And I want you to click search, okay? Just houses and search. And I want you to look up these suburbs for yourself. I want to convince yourself about scarcity of stock in different areas. I want you to type in, I'm not going to go for Toorak and Brighton, forget about the top end suburbs, mid-range top end suburbs, right? I want you to type in Ormond, number 1. Number 2 is Windsor. See how many houses are for sale in Windsor on realestate.com. Okay? I want you to type in East Melbourne, West Melbourne, Williamstown, okay, houses, Elwood, houses, McKinnon, houses. How many on the market? And you're going to find 5, 6, 7, you know, and they're all very different in price point. Then I want you to go and put in Point Cook, just houses, see how many on the market right now. I want you to type in Craigieburn. I want you to type in Trigonina. I want you to type in Berwick. I want you to type in Pakenham. Do you see a pattern there? 200, 300, 400 per suburb versus 5 or 6, 7, 8. What do you think is going to happen? And this is, remember, we're still in a very locked up, non-traveling kind of an industry now. People haven't come home from overseas. What do you think is going to happen next year when the international borders open up and all these people with money are going to start going into Melbourne, into the school zones, into premium suburbs, and there's 4 houses on the market or 5 houses on the market? What do you think is going to happen at those auctions? Do you think there's going to be pressure on those properties to go up in value? Absolutely, it's going to go through the roof. So remember, at the moment on the property clock, we're going from kind of 8 o'clock to 12. We're at 8 o'clock at the moment on the Herrington White property clock. We have 3 years of massive growth ahead of us. Massive growth. Mark my words. And it's going to happen not in tree change or sea change suburbs, it's going to happen in the fundamental suburbs that have all the right fundamentals, not the ones that were just boomed recently. And it's up to you to get a piece of that action. If you miss out on the next 3 years in the property market, you might not get in again because the gap between the variance between the prices to get in, the median price of Melbourne is already $1,030,000, which already for an average income earner is unattainable. But it's going to get even worse. It's going to go to 1.3. And then it's over. With the increases in interest rates, with the increase in credit scoring algorithms and also benchmark rates going up, which means you're getting less money that you can borrow, and the combination of capital growth, which will be fueled by foreigners coming into the country, this could be for an average income earner your last chance to get into the market. If you don't get in the next 3 years, you might never be able to get in. You're going to be renting for the rest of your life, which is cool when you're young, but when you hit 50 and 60, it's not going to be very cool. When you get that letter saying get out of the property and start looking for a rental at 65, okay? It's not very cool when that happens to you. And time goes like that. So you want to get into the property market, you want to buy your dream home eventually, and you want to have that security for the rest of your life. And that's all I do with my clients. I help them build up a system, whatever it is for them, everyone's got a different system, different approach, of sustaining large property portfolios and eventually buying their dream home, wherever that dream home may be, whether it's in the water, mountains, whatever it is. It could be a penthouse in the city. It doesn't make a difference. So if you're interested in having a chat with me via Zoom, feel free to contact me and we can spend 60 minutes going through your situation, find out where you are currently, where you want to be, and see if there's a way I can bridge the gap between your current situation and your goals. It's absolutely free. There's no any kind of strings attached or payments. And we're going to turn those ideas into a plan and into an action plan. So you're going to walk away with a real action plan by going to this 60-minute consultation. And that plan really is the key to success, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's just not going to happen. You've got to have a written plan of what to do first. And the first thing you've got to do, guys, is you get market ready. You've got to go to a mortgage broker, get a pre-approval, and get a funding proposal in writing. Funding proposal is a 12-page report saying, congratulations, John and Mary, based on your current financial situation, you can borrow $800,000. These are the 3 lenders we recommend: CBA, ANZ, Macquarie. These are the interest rates, and this is how much deposit you need. That's the first thing. Everyone, that's what you need to do first. Once you get that, you can come to me. I can find you a property, or you can just go out there and buy a property. You don't need me. You just go out there and buy whatever you want. What I do is I show you how to get from A to B with the quickest possible time frame, because ultimately, the number one resource that you have in your life that is non-recyclable and non-renewable is time. You can always get more money, guys, but you can't get more time. And once your time runs out, it is over. 65, the banks don't want to know you. 70, forget about it. You can't do lending. So you want to get all your loans done in your 30s and 40s and set yourself up for later retirement. In the initial 1 hour consultation, you walk away with a real action plan of where you are, where you want to be, and what you need to do based on your budget, based on your goals. This is all about you. It's not about me or other people. You also get a personal introduction to my whole team. My mortgage broker, my accountant, my lawyer, my financial planner. These are all independent companies, been around a lot longer than I have. Right down to depreciation schedules from BMT, right down to quantity surveying, insurance, everything. All these guys, by the way, are also in my book, and many of them have contributed a chapter to this book. So financial planning, lawyers have contributed a chapter on things you need to understand and modifying the contract of sale. Property managers have contributed a chapter to my book on property management, everyone. So the whole team is in this book. I can give you this whole team as well during the consultation. This by itself is priceless. It took me a decade to get these people together. And really, you're only as good as your team. If there is a secret of success, which there isn't really, but if there is a secret of success, it's getting the team right. Because the team will make you wealthy, or they'll keep you poor. And it really depends on what they've done themselves. That's the secret of success, if there is one. And then what I'll do with you is I'll basically develop a strategy, a plan over 10 years. And I'll show you how many properties you can secure, how much income you can derive from those properties, everything. There's no obligation, by the way, but it's a step-by-step, paint-by-the-numbers system. I've done this thousands of times over the years. It's nothing new. I do this with people hundreds of times per year, literally. In 12 months, I do way over 200 or 300 of these consultations. So it's definitely something that's very tangible, and it gives you a step-by-step system. Now, one thing I've got to tell you guys is I am running out of time to do these because I have so many existing clients and they keep coming back for more properties. I'm slowly becoming less available, and it's taking longer and longer to see me, and I'm starting to become at work in terms of my job. And I only work from like 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock Monday to Friday, and I have 6 holidays a year. I don't work that hard, but I'm nearly at capacity, and there'll be a point in time where I'll stop offering these consultations altogether. Now, I will hire new people to do it, so I will have consultants and buyers advocates that will do these in the future. It just won't be myself. So if you want to see me personally, this is the time to book it in. I'm still available. The only thing you need to do is qualify. The only qualifying criteria is you've got to have the right money, enough money to buy the minimum entry-level property into the market, which is really about 700,000, okay? So you need to be, as an individual person, have at least 95,000 income per year and have 112,000 in equity or cash available. So you can buy a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom townhouse in Heidelberg Heights or West, which is like the entry level into the market, the cheapest property that I source. If you're a couple, you need to be on about 120, 140, so 80 plus 60, can be even 40, depending on the other expenses, and have 112,000 in equity available, which covers your deposit and stamp duty. So as long as you've got that income, you can borrow 700,000, or just get a pre-qualifying pre-approval for 700,000, 750, then I can get you started on your journey into property investing and building up a massive property portfolio that can eventually give you financial freedom if that's what you're after. And that's it pretty much. All you got to do if you're interested is, if you've been to a live event, you get this form, you can fill that out, send it to me, or just email me at conrad@investorsprime.com.au, or jump onto our website and you can fill out a form on our website and send it to me. And then we can catch up in person and go through your situation. That's it for me, guys. It's been great spending this time with you. I hope you got value out of my video. If you have, subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for future videos. This is Conrad Bobilak, and I'll see you on the inside.